Well, thanks everybody for coming out on a very dark and dreary day. I'm Cathy Katin-Grazzini. I'm a sustainable chef, which means I cook for the planet for lowering our carbon emissions, and I'm a plant-based chef. So I'm also cooking for ourselves, our bodies, our health, because it's a very anti-inflammatory, healthy way of eating. But besides that, it's really a fun way to go. And this is a recipe I wanted to share because they invited me to do a presentation here, and I thought this would be a fun one. Everybody loves chilies. And I thought I'd tell you a little bit about cooking with chili, with Mexican chilies, and just, make this a little educational, little show and tell as we go. But so we're doing a black and red bean chili with made with Mexican chilies. And I'm going to heat up my pan just because it takes a couple of minutes here. And I'll tell you everything that goes in here. So it's all plant-based. I'm not even going to be sauteing with oils. So this is going to be, so probably blow your mind because most people use a lot of cooking oils in their cooking. But we don't always need to. And this is actually a way to keep calories really lower, but also bring out the flavors. And so, here's a technique that people always wonder about when they start, if they're interested in this sort of cooking. How in the world do you saute without oil? So we will go through all of that. And while the pan is heating up, I will describe everything that's going into this chili. So so we're going to start with onions. So I have diced onions here, and we're going to caramelize them in a dry pan and just let them release their liquid. Vegetables have quite a high water content. People don't realize it. They think if I put vegetables in my pan, it's going to burn, and what am I going to do? But unless you have an extremely high heat, which we won't, and I can always regulate it lower a little bit on an induction. I haven't made this chili on an induction burner, so I might have to play with the temperature a little bit. But we want it to be hot enough so that it caramelizes the onions and brings out all those natural sugars, and it will begin to release its liquid and darken the bottom of the pan. Will turn sort of a brownish, all those sugars will adhere to the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to deglaze it with just a little bit of vegetable broth, which I make, I just make it as I need it. This is just water with some dehydrated soup vegetables, that I grind in my little coffee grinder into like a bouillon powder. And it makes just a little broth that I don't have to buy one of those septic containers that I never know what, I use so little, what am I going to use that? And they taste like nothing. Also, they taste like water. So this way you can control how much of the soup vegetables you put in there, make it a little more flavorful, but you could use any liquid. We're just going to put just a little bit of liquid just to unstick those sugars from the bottom of the pan and bring them into, that's going to be the foundation of building up the flavor in our chili. So after that, still needs to get a little hotter. I'm going to put in my garlic. You need a little bit of moisture in the pan because garlic will burn. So we're just going to regulate that, and I'll add a little more just judiciously. But I'm not going to, I think when people start cooking plant-based and they think, I'm not cooking with oils, geez, how do I keep things from burning? So they just, instead of using olive oil, they'll just put liquid broth or wine or whatever in their pan, and you end up steaming all your sauteed vegetables, and everything turns kind of gray and mushy, and it's not very appealing, and it doesn't bring out the flavors. So when we're dealing with aromatics like onions or carrots or celery, in a sofrito or in a battuto or something, foundational flavors for a mirepoix, like if you were doing something French or Italian, just a little teeny bit of liquid, but only after those onions have done their thing. So that's how to start. So we'll put in the garlic. I have a little Mexican oregano, and after the presentation, you're all welcome. I brought in a bunch of spices so you can smell them, because so often we spend a fortune buying seasonings in our grocery stores. You get them all pre-ground in the bottles and so forth. But they've been sitting on the shelf for we don't know how long, and the essential oils in those herbs and spices degrade very quickly. And so they really lose a lot of their potency and their flavor, and also any kind of nutritional value, because herbs and spices are actually very nutritious. So it's so easy, if you do have a little coffee grinder, it costs about 20, 25 bucks, to grind your own spices and your own chilies, because there is a world of difference in flavor that you'll find. So Mexican oregano here. Then we're going to put in, I have chopped up peppers here. So here I just have a red and an orange, or yellow, I think orange, bell peppers, but also poblano chilies. I don't know if any of you are familiar with poblanos. It's another green chili. You even find it in our supermarkets very commonly. It's a little bit elongated. You might have seen them and wondered, what the heck are these? They're more flavorful than green peppers. They're not hot like a chili. They have a little bit of a buzz going on there, but it's very mild, and they're just very flavorful. So they're wonderful to build in our chili. So those are the 3 peppers. Then, so I'm going to start there. And then as we go, I'll tell you what I'll be adding and how to do it. And I just want to really just test a little bit, just a drop of water. I don't want to wet this pan. I'm just trying to gauge how hot it might be at this point. Okay, well, it's definitely hot enough. In fact, I might bring it down a little bit. So you want your fruit to deal with the onions. You just want your pan to be hot enough. Otherwise, you won't get any action, but not too hot, because otherwise you'll scorch them too quickly. So hopefully this pan will cool down a little bit, because that was a little hot, but you want to hear sizzle. And this is a really sensuous way of cooking. We're going to use all our senses, our ears, our eyes, obviously our noses and mouths. So this is just a diced red onion. And we're just going to let this cook up a little bit till it begins to it could be any kind of onion. Doesn't have to be red. It's just for the color. You got some extra nutrition there. You've got anthocyanins. That's that red color in fruits and vegetables. It's an antioxidant. So it just bumps up, a little bit of the polyphenols, the good antioxidant action in vegetables. But it's, most Mexican cooking probably use white and yellow onions. It's more common. So you can't go wrong, whatever onion you want to use. Yeah, they also do use them. I got a lot of these ingredients locally at Seatown. Have any of you ever been to Seatown in Danbury? Yeah, so wonderful for Latin dishes, for Latino and, from all over Central America, Mexico, Brazil, and South America. So it's beginning to work. I'm going to hold up the pan. If we had one of those mirrors here, you'd all be able to see. But I will tip the pan as it gets going a little bit. So it's nice. I think I have a good temperature here. It's, I'll send some of these onion vapors your way. I'm just going to let it cook down a little bit more to soften, because this is a really one of the big foundations. This plus the peppers to build this chili from the bottom up. Okay, so another minute there. What else is going in here? After I do the next couple of steps, we'll be dealing with our We'll be dealing with our chilies and spices. The spices that I'm using, are freshly roasted and ground. It sounds like a big deal. It takes about 30 seconds in a little skillet, so it's not a time thing. And then you roast, you know, you really don't want to over roast your cumin or your coriander, which is what I'm using here, because they burn and then they become bitter. So it's just to coax out more flavor and then grind them up into a powder. And so I encourage you all to come up and smell these, because you won't believe the aroma compared to the store-bought alternatives. It's just night and day. So that will go in here, and I'm using a bunch of different chilies. I don't know if you've ever bought chili powder in the store. For years and years, I did in the past, and it never tasted like anything. I mean, no flavor whatsoever. I always been mystified. Okay, I'm gonna take this moment just to, can you see how it's browning the bottom of the pan? So that's good. That's what we want. And that's probably enough. And now I'm just going to use just a couple of tablespoons of this, this broth to just deglaze it, just to scrape up. And I don't want to make it soggy. I can always add more, but yeah, it lifts up whatever I have down there, and it just brings it back into the onions. So I'm getting all that sweetness and all that onion flavor. That might even be enough. Okay, I can add more later, but I'm going to stop here. And time to add our garlic. So about 3 cloves, 4 cloves, you know, good sized cloves. If you're a garlic fan, you could add an extra one if you want. And I'm going to add about a good teaspoon of Mexican oregano, which has a very different smell than European oregano. And you can find this at Seatown, so, or online, you know. It's just a great place to get your chilies and your some of your seasonings. And obviously they have vegetables and an amazing selection of beans. Okay, and say again. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm from next door. I'm in Ridgefield. So so I haven't shopped that, but that's great. Yeah, look there. I mean, convenience, you know, if you can find it closer, that's great. Okay, so, and these are just so colorful. I love, I'm gonna add a little more liquid because it's drying out. But again, I'm not swamping, you know, I'm just going very, only as I need it, because we're gonna add tomatoes soon. I could always add liquid, but I want these vegetables to release their liquids, not just swim and steam in other liquid. Okay, so we'll let this just cook for about 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to adding seasonings. So there are a lot of ways to cook with chilies, and all of them are great. And I encourage you to, you know, if you get into this, to have fun with it, because you don't have to use, I'm using several different kinds of Mexican chilies just to introduce you to their flavors. But you can make a chili powder so simply that will be so lively and funky, you know, you'll taste it, because they're not just heat. The chilies, I mean, they're all different levels of the Scoville scale of chilies, you know, that are very hot or not so hot, you know, based on your preferences. But chilies are so much more. They're fruity, they're raisiny, they're smoky, they're sweet, and, you know, they just, they're earthy. They have so many dimensions, and each one is unique. So you can pick one and make a chili powder out of that, or you can, what I'm doing tonight is I'm actually gonna put in 4 different types of chili powders that I made for you all this morning. So it's all really nice and fresh. And you're, again, afterwards, you can you can sample them, you can smell them, you know, and see if yeah. So I brought 3 in a little show and tell here. So so this is a guajillo, which has a lovely you know, sort of fruity, citrusy, it's a little hard to describe, but you know, these are all mild chilies, the 3 that I'm using here. And I'm only going to put in, you know, I don't know what all of your tolerance is. I'm not going to make this a super hot chili. All of you are welcome to add a little to your sample at the end if you are so inclined, if you want to, if you're a fan. But I don't want to, you know, I don't want anybody's hair to stand up, you know, as a result of eating this. So I have, that's the guajillo. This is an ancho, very mild, but nice and, you know, lovely. Again, it's hard to find the adjectives, but just lovely flavors. And this is pasilla. The pasilla is a great chili because it really is raisiny tasting. And all of them get made, you know, a sampling of this is, I also have chipotle, which is a little smokier in that it's made from the dried jalapeno. So this is a little bit stronger in heat, but not much. You know, they're not considered a very hot chili, just a little bit hotter. So I'll be putting a little, just a 1/4 teaspoon of each of them in here. And then, you know, as you cook towards the end, I'll be sampling them just to see if I can perceive them. And we can always add, but you know, you don't want to go too high in the beginning. So, so the way to work with chilies, I mean, there are many things that you can do. Is you want to take a chili like this guajillo, and if you have a cast iron skillet, you know, any kind of heavy bottom pan, you just want to warm them in a warm pan. So not a scorching pan, just a heated pan. And they'll darken a little bit. You don't want to burn them, but you just want to press them down with like a potato masher or even a wooden spoon or whatever. And it softens them up a little bit and it kind of releases the essential oils in them. And then just put them aside, they'll cool down, and then you can cut them up with the scissors or just even your hands in your coffee grinder and make a powder out of it. And just, you know, you don't have to make a huge amount of them because the fresher it is, the more exciting it is from a flavor perspective, but also they're full of antioxidants. You know, chilies are just so good for us. So even the tiny amount that we use is really wonderful and has wonderful anti-inflammatory effects. Okay, I better attend to this now. I'm just gonna deglaze it again a little bit, keep it from adhering anywhere. But yeah, just needed a little bit there. And now let me, I'm gonna be putting in, this is coriander and cumin that I roasted the seeds. I have some whole seeds there so you can see what cumin seed and coriander seed actually look like. And I'm going to be putting in about 1.5 teaspoons of these. So these I use a little more generously. I think coriander, ground coriander, you've got to smell it. It's one of my favorite spices. It smells so citrusy when you do it fresh this way. Whereas, you know, I have in the past bought it at the little South Asian shop on Padan, how do you say? Padan. Lovely people, but so much better to make your own coriander powder. It's just much more flavorful. So that's cumin and coriander. And now I'm going to add just a 1/4 teaspoon of each of these. So this is the ancho. It's just so fruity. This is the guajillo. It's beautiful red color. No. Oh, there you go. There's, but that sounds so good. Yeah. Yeah. I think making your own if you can, um, it's just as fresh as it can be. So you're unlocking all that flavor. You know, these are all convenience foods that food producers do because people don't want to spend time doing them, but you lose, you know, it's a compromise. So if you have a little bit of time, believe me, it doesn't take long. Now I did several of these, but you don't need to. You can, oops, it's like here, let me just label things right. You could do this all with, you know, ancho or any of them. I see, yeah. No. No. One chili, no, I did several chilies. Yeah, they're pretty flat. I don't know, it's hard to, I mean, they all are different sizes, but yeah, there might have been 4 or 5 chilies, you know, to get this amount, but I use the powders quite a bit. And they'll keep well in your cupboard for months, but you know, not for years. You know, people have spices forever. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Oh, I don't work at a restaurant. I'm a cookbook author. I used to do personal chefing, and as Adam here knows, I used to do classes in Ridgefield out of my home. But no, I am not at a restaurant. Um, oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. The other thing that goes in is allspice, which is a lovely you know, some Mexican recipes use cinnamon. You know, there are different, but allspice works very well. And we are just, again, using about a half a teaspoon. And at this stage, the only other thing is a couple of grinds of black pepper. And now you can use smoked paprika, um, but I find that I don't know, the smoked paprika, you can't buy those chilies. You have to buy it ground. And I've been disappointed. It doesn't have much flavor. I never get the smokiness from my smoked paprika. So an alternative is to use liquid smoke, which is just really water and perfectly healthy. You know, there's nothing in here but the smoked water. Um, and we are going to use about 3/4 of a teaspoon, just to give it a little bit of those color, those notes. Oops, that's a little too much. Again, I'll add more if I, just hickory. Okay, at this point, we are ready to add our tomatoes. The chilies and the peppers are nice and soft. Everything is, I don't know, is anybody smelling anything or is it you too far away? Takes a whole 28-ounce can, this recipe. And I often get the whole tomatoes. Try to find a brand that doesn't have preservatives or salt or citric acid, you know, they sodium chloride and salt. You just the tomatoes, a little bit of puree, and maybe a little sprig of basil, you know, that's all you really want in your tomatoes. So anybody have any questions so far? Would you go? Oh, really hot? Yeah, no, we're not going to go that far. Yeah, I mean that's almost life-threatening hot. No, these are mild chilies, and again, chilies are the kind of thing that once you start working with them and playing with them, they're so delicious. You'll find you'll be adding them to all sorts of things that you may not have, just because they're so good. It doesn't have to just be a dish like this. Okay, I'm gonna lower the temperature just a little bit. And in a minute, I'm gonna save this. So what else is coming up? Well, we have our beans, because we're not using any meat in this chili. This is all a vegetarian chili. And it's a mixture of just black and red beans, and you can use whatever kind of red beans you like. But this is, beans are, of all the foods, it's such a great source of protein, fiber, loaded with, so many vitamins and minerals. Americans, unless you come from a background that, in Lebanon, are there beans? Is that a big thing? I don't know. Do any of you come from cultures where it's bean focused? Yeah? Where are you from? Uh, yeah. Well, you're ahead of the game because they're so delicious and they're so good for you, and there's so many different varieties. And these are so yeah, now we just have to let things cook a little bit. So I'm gonna add a little water because it is a chili. I don't want it to be too dry. Doesn't need much. And now it's just a question of, we're not quite done, but I'm gonna actually just cover it up and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what else is still going in here. So let's see. This is a recipe that actually, as you see, cooks up very quickly. It's not a lengthy cook. The part that takes time is the prepping, like so often, just in advance. And that, you can simplify if you have your chili powders, already made the day before or the week before or whatever. That would save you a lot of time. Other than that, it's an onion, it's garlic, and it's the peppers. It's not that shouldn't be that onerous. So what still is going to come on top is we've got corn. So I roasted a couple of ears of corn. And to do that, very simply, just shuck the outer part of the corn and just rest it on your burners. Now, I don't know what kind of stoves you have. If you have electric heat, I'm not quite sure. You would have to almost do it on a grill, I think. But if you have a gas range, then you can just simply rotate it for a couple of minutes, and we cook corn to death. Right on the burner, on top of the burner, and just stay with it, and keep rolling it around. And it gets a little speckled. And the color of the corn actually deepens, and you don't want to dry it out. We overcook corn terribly. We boil it in water, which is a sin. You could eat corn raw, and it's perfectly healthy. As a kid, I used to do that. I used to spend a little time on farms, and that's what we did. We would just pick it out in the field and eat it. But if you roast it a little bit, it takes on a little bit of that roasted flavor, and it's really delicious. And it's just minimum cooking. And then with a sharp chef knife, you want to slice it off the cob. And that's what we have here. And we're going to add it at the very end because we really don't want to cook it. We want it to stay sweet and a little crunchy. Getting if anybody wants to come up and smell, I mean, I know we're a little bit of a group, but yeah, there's just so much flavor, so many wonderful things. So what's still to come at the very end, before we serve it up, I have for serving it, we're going to add the corn and we're going to add some lime juice. And I'm not cooking with salt here. You certainly can if you want to, but salt is an issue for a lot of people who have, it's irritating to our intestines and our gut and our arteries, and it raises blood pressure and, has effects in the body, which we're trying to lower sodium in our foods. Processed foods have a ton of sodium in it, and that's where most people get into trouble if they eat processed foods, and an awful lot of people do. But still, I wanted to show you all a healthy alternative. And so I'm using, in the cookbook, I use red miso, but you could use white miso, which is what I have here today. And I don't know if you've ever cooked with miso paste. So miso actually, it's a fermented bean paste. Usually made with soybeans, but other beans can be used as well, and sometimes grains. And it's fermented with a particular type of Aspergillus orzae mold, which has wonderful effects in the body. It actually brings down your heart rate, it brings down your blood pressure. It's good for your heart, even though it's got salt in it. So it's kind of a remarkable thing. So when I season my foods, I use miso instead of salt. And so I wanted you to experience that as well. And this is diluted about 50-50, just so it dilutes, because it comes out, miso is a paste, and you either have to dilute it in a little bit of water, or in a little bit of if you're making a soup, in a little bit of the soup liquid. Otherwise, it takes forever to spread, and I don't want to destroy the structure of the chili by breaking up all the beans and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, you can find it in health food stores. You can find it in Whole Foods, certainly. Yeah, they don't have it in most supermarkets yet, but it's easy to find, and you can even buy it oftentimes online. Not white miso. White miso is a little bit milder. It's not fermented as long. It's got a lighter color. It's very cheesy, sort of nutty, cheesy. It's got nice flavors. So you're getting, and it's a probiotic food, by the way. So if now in a dish like this, because this is hot, I'm not sure how much of the probiotic will survive, but if you're making a salad dressing, or using, depending on what you're cooking with miso, if you add it at the very end, like in Japan, they'll season whatever they're having with miso once the flame is off, at the very, very end of cooking, and then they'll eat it right away. So that you're getting not only the flavor, but you are getting some of the probiotic benefits as well. So we're going to add the corn, the lime juice. Lime, I also, at the very end of cooking, if you're cooking with lemon, lime, you don't want to overcook it. It gets a little bitter. Again, turn off the heat, or at the last couple of minutes of cooking, that's when you would add your citrus. And you could add, I have, well, I'll let you, we're a small enough group that when we serve it up, you can tell me if you want what kind of fixings you want on your little plate of chili. I have some scallions, I have cilantro, I have a little sliced jalapeno for anybody who wants a little more zip. And I have just a little smashed avocado. So a little simple guacamole that actually, here's a trick to keep it from turning brown. And it's done very well. So I made it just a couple of hours ago. Slice up a lime and just lay it on top. You don't have to, if you don't want a very limey avocado, there's going to be lime juice in the chili. I didn't want it to be so citrusy. That's all you need to do is the lime sitting on it will be enough to keep it from oxidizing. All right. Who said something? Yeah. I do in the season. It's you know, it's I have my little window boxes, you know, but you know, I just have seeds in there right now. And so yeah. You know, I'm not really particular. I just buy them without sodium and without preservatives. So almost every blend will make uh Goya, I think, tends to put preservatives in their beans. They have I like Goya for certain things, but that's but even Stop and Shop, for example, will make no sodium options. And so, you know, you just don't need all that extra stuff in your beans. Um, Sometimes, but I'm not a slave to it. You know, there are some vegetables and fruits that are so heavily sprayed. Maybe I would err towards organic in those cases, but organic can also use pesticides as well. They just use organic pesticides. Sometimes they generally have lower pesticidal residues, but it depends on the local farmer, which unless you know your local farms and are buying from them, it's difficult to control. But the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables, of whether it's conventional or organic, so outweighs any kind of risks that we face, that I don't let that discourage me from eating fruits and vegetables, because it's just so tremendously beneficial. So, and you know, not everybody wants to, you know, many times it's not even necessary. Like there are so many vegetables and fruits, asparagus, for example, it grows out of the ground in like days. It doesn't need ever to be sprayed. You know, there are a lot of things that we're paying for that it's not really essential. So yeah, you know, I know there's just so much, the Environmental Working Group does great work and so forth, but I think all their efforts with vilifying conventional produce is discouraging and frightens people away from consuming them, and it shouldn't, you know, because the benefits, again, even if it's traditional and conventionally grown, is just overwhelmingly beneficial versus the risks, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons now. I'm actually going to turn off the heat because we're really getting close. I'm going to put in the corn. Give it a little stir. Then we'll use a little miso. Is anybody hungry? All right, I like the consistency. The aroma is good. I'm going to add some, you know, I'm going to add some of the miso. Generally, for an amount like this, it would take about 1/3 of a cup of red miso, but white miso is a little more mild, so it might take a little bit more, and then dilute it in the same amount. So I think I'm just going to go slowly and taste, because it's time to taste anyway. And whatever you cook, you want to, you know, taste as you go, and but especially at the end, you want to make any kind of adjustments. See. Get a little bit of heat, but it's very gentle. Does it need much? I'm going to add a little more miso. But I think it's pretty close. Maybe a little more lime. And, and again, this is the kind of thing that you would adjust to your own taste. Like, when you taste something, you want to get, you might not be able to distinguish between all the different chilies and so forth, but I'm not really sensing much of the allspice. So I'm just going to put a little more in and a little more of the smokiness from the, oops. Because I think just a little, doesn't really need, it's, much, but just so you can get, you want to involve all your senses. And in addition, to serve with this, now this is better when it comes hot out of the oven, which obviously we can't do tonight, but this is the next best thing. It's fun to serve these with some corn chips, but instead of commercially made corn chips, what I like to do is just, I have, and I'll serve these are just tortillas, corn tortillas that I just bake in the oven. And that's all you need to do. You don't even need to season them. I cut them when I'm making, these are like little chip size, so I cut them in eighths and then just, and it's part of the recipe. It's, takes 8 minutes or something to cook, no time at all at a 425 oven. So, but when they're hot out of the oven, they're particularly good, I was worried they were going to get soggy on my way over here, all the rain. I think that's okay. All right. Well, you guys will be the judge. So let's have some fun. Let's serve it up. If anybody wants to add a little more of the chilies, I don't know if anybody's here is a fan of more heat. I don't have shakers for the tops, but you can use the 1/4 teaspoon to add any of these chilies to it, but go slowly. And I will begin to serve some of this up. And with a little bit of, actually, I think I might put this actually in, because I think it's going to be very difficult otherwise. So this is just sliced up scallion and some cilantro. If I have to, so we just give it a little more flavor there. And again, this doesn't need to cook, it's just the heat of the chili itself will be enough. Okay. And but what I will do on each of yours is just take off some of this lime. And if you like jalapeno, let me know and I'll just spoon a little on top. But if you want to taste it first, maybe decide if you're happy with what you got. There. All right. I think we're close. So who's going to be first? Don't be shy. And there's probably, all right. There's probably enough for even seconds or thirds, but whoa. Your forks and spoons. I'm gonna give you a double plate. I think it might be safer. Oh, did you want, oh, sorry, wait a second. Did you want any jalapenos? Do you like heat?
Yeah, that makes you something.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, a little soy yogurt is also, you can strain it for a couple of hours. It comes out very thick and makes a wonderful alternative to sour cream. A lot better for you. Enjoy. Would you like jalapenos or no? I'm gonna get another spoon here just to scrape it off. And give you a couple of chips. Oh yeah, and a fork. Oh, okay. Well, come and get it. Any jalapenos or? Oh yeah, napkins. I forgot about those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, grab a fork and a napkin. Oops. Get you a couple of chips. Mm-hmm. What would you like? Just no avocado? No. How is it? Enjoy? What would you like? A little jalapeno? How about the guacamole?
And the guac.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was beautiful play.
Let me give you a couple of chips.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. Just the avocado. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so good for you too. That's what also makes me happy, but it has to be tasty. What would you like?
What's just a lot of avocado, please?
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm a dill fan.
Thank you so much.
Which one did you smell?
The raisin one.
Oh, yeah.
Can't believe this.
I know, isn't it crazy? Try the coriander powder. That one always, it's just one of my favorite seasonings. What would you like both?
Works.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got really cold.
Mhm.
Sometimes it does. That's crazy. That's spicy.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. Yeah. Unexpected.
Oh, it's like really worth getting to know and love these seasonings. Oh, yeah. Did you grab it? What would you like, Sue?
Avocado and a little,
Jalapeno?
yeah, a little.
Mhm. Well, that's a little, but hopefully enough. All right, it's quiet out there.
That means it's good.
Is that a good thing?
Thank you. Now, is your whole recipe book vegetarian?
Oh, yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to get myself a copy.
Yeah, oh, do, thank you. Happy to sign anybody's copy if they're so inclined. Or it makes a wonderful gift, a very visual cookbook. So, oh, what would you like?
I'll have the words.
Um, A lot of 2-page spreads of photos and yeah,
Yeah, I've done it.
he did. You have a good memory. Yeah, we have a lot of fun cooking in the kitchen.
Very much.
Does everybody have one? Does anybody want more? There's plenty. Yeah, this is one of the recipes in the cookbook. But there are so many others, and many of the recipes are for everyday nights, when you don't have a lot of time, and some of them are a little more celebratory when you do have time. There are soups, there are salads, there are breads, there are a big chapter on desserts. Would you like to sample? Do you want some jalapeno and avocado? I, can you taste anything on those chips? I did, normally I don't season them, but this time I was curious because I knew they weren't going to be hot, so I just brushed on a very diluted miso. But it was so little, I don't think it left much of a trace. But you could do lime juice or whatever. But it normally right out of the oven, you don't even need it. Uh, So cooking with plants should never be boring. You want to wake up your senses. It's more exciting. Exactly, so I just wanted to expose you all to just the possibilities. So if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants a cookbook, I'd be happy to sign it. Or if anybody wants a little more, it's, while I'm up here, happy to do that too. Well, thank you. I'm gonna migrate over there if anybody does want a copy. Makes a very nice holiday gift, birthday gift, you may have any folks interested. And this is a cookbook that's actually has a lot of climate information in it as well. So you understand how our food choices are really impacting climate change. Well, thank you all for coming. Hope you learned something new.